point. So when we're talking self-esteem, again, we talk self-efficacy and self-respect. Self-efficacy, I said, is our confidence in our competence. And then this first little section that I'm going to read, it talks about self-efficacy specifically. Self-efficacy is not the certainty that we will be able to master any and every challenge that life presents. It is the conviction that we are capable, in principle, of learning what we need to learn, and that we are committed to doing our rational and conscientious best to master the tasks and challenges that are entailed by our values. And that's something I think that we all should take into consideration, but entailed by our values, right? It's not values that somebody else is putting on you. Again, I've made the statement numerous times that you can do whatever you really want to do, that you can accomplish anything you really want to accomplish. And I qualified that though by saying that you won't really want to accomplish something that you absolutely can't do, right? Meaning that desire won't even be put inside of you to try to accomplish something that you can't. Now, there are passing thoughts and bad ideas that we have sometimes about things that we would like to do or whatever, right? But generally, we already know, we can think about the consequences of those things if we were to go that route according to those bad ideas. But the things that are really going to help us, the things that are really going to support us, the things that are according to our purpose in life, right? And each one of you have a purpose. I have a purpose, and every one of you have a purpose in life, right? Even though we may not know right now at this moment, we might not know what that purpose is, right? But you do have a purpose, and that's why you're still here. Something that you're going to do that's going to help, your fellow man or woman, or, however you want to say that. And then it says self-efficacy is deeper than confidence in our specific knowledge and skills based on past successes and accomplishments, although it is certainly nurtured by them. So again, most of us, we have a certain amount of faith, as you should, in our past accomplishments. We're proud of certain things that we were able to accomplish in the past, and things that we were able to do. But a lot of people will base their future opportunities or what they may be able to accomplish in the future, they will base that solely on what they have accomplished in the past, right? And that's not correct. So again, where it said it's certainly nurtured by them, that means that the fact that you have accomplished certain things in the past, right, helps to improve your level of self-efficacy so that you feel more confident about something that you may attempt in the future, right? Again, remember I mentioned about the difference between the rich folks' mindset and the poor folks' mindset, right? Because, we all, as I did, I won't say we all, but I grew up, again, rich get richer and the poor get poorer, that type of philosophy. And I used to say it, people around me would say it, and some of you people still say it, right? And it's true, the rich do get richer and the poor do get poorer, right? But is it because the system is designed for it to be that way, or is it because there's something about our behavior that makes it happen or makes it turn out that way? And I say it's something about our behavior that makes it turn out that way, not the fact that we just happen to be poor, so that's just our, it's just what's going to be our life, right? So we can choose to do better, but doing better is a lot of work. And a lot of us don't want to put in the work, right? I mean, we got to do a lot of things, especially if like me, right, I've started late, right? I didn't even start, you can really say I didn't really start my life till I got out of prison. So I got out of prison at 38. Right, I'm 51 now, and again, I'm doing certain things that I'm doing is shit that I should have taken care of when I was a teenager, but I didn't. So guess what? 51 years old, my motherfucking ass gonna be doing the shit that I should have done then, and I'm not whining about it, right? Because I'm glad I have an opportunity to do it, and I'm glad that I have come to the realization that I need to do these things, right? I need to understand that I need to do these things. So anyway, this self-efficacy is big, right? Again, confidence in our competence. We want to continue to try to, as it mentioned, or nurture that self-efficacy. It says to be lacking in the experience of self-efficacy, to anticipate defeat rather than victory, is to be interrupted or undermined or even paralyzed to varying degrees in our efforts to cope with the task and challenges life presents us, right? And so any of us can get caught up, right? I'm not standing here pretending that all of the stuff that I talk about, that I'm immediately, that's just, that's just me. I'm just on it all the time, right? I have some days that are better than other days. I have some days that I feel like, yeah, I can do anything. And then I have some days like, man, I'll fuck everything up, right? I think I mentioned to you before, I had growing up, I thought the whole self-esteem thing was bullshit. But besides that, I know that I had lower level of self-esteem. I didn't understand what it was, but I do know that I had that. I even, about myself, I even said that, I had the opposite of the Midas touch. I think I mentioned it in here before. Whereas, the Midas touch, everything you touch turns to gold, according to the myth. And, I would say everything I touch turned to shit, right? Because, it was common practice that I would fuck shit up. And so the thing about our self-esteem, when we do certain things that are not within our values, it will affect your self-esteem, right? You won't get away from that. And so, and that even goes with going along with, let's say, the common narrative, like bullshit they got going on in society and the community and stuff like that. When we go along with it, because everybody else is doing it, so we figure, okay, I'm gonna do it too, right? But it's against your values, the things that you hold near and dear, that will affect your self-esteem. It will affect the way that you feel about yourself, and it will make it more likely that you will put yourself in a situation where you won't be successful in life, right? Because you don't even feel comfortable with the fact that you're a piece of shit, right? And I'm not saying you're a piece of shit, but you're gonna feel you're a piece of shit because of the things that you're doing, right? The things that you're doing, the way that you treat people. Again, not being able to stick with your own values, doing something, harming somebody when you know that it wasn't the right thing to do. I could even use for some of us from our prison experiences, right, where we had certain things that we did in prison, I'm talking about the violence, right? Maybe somebody that we beat up or stabbed or whatever, right? Because, they had to go get off the yard or whatever. But we knew that we were wrong. But based on the situation and prison politics and the other shit, right, the person had to go. So you had to do what you had to do. But you knew that you were wrong and you felt a certain way about that. But we pushed those type of feelings away, or at least I did, because again, I felt that it was a weakness, right? Having sympathy, remorse, that type of shit. Like, come on, man, that's weak. And it definitely don't go along with that type of lifestyle, right? You start driving yourself crazy if you start, feeling guilty about all this fucked up shit that you're doing. Now, and it's natural though, it's natural that you're gonna feel guilty about it because you're a human being. And as I said before, contrary to popular belief and contrary to your own belief, for a lot of you, you're a good person, right? You are a good person. You've done some fucked up shit, but you're a good person. And because you're a good person, that's why you feel guilty when you do something that you know that you shouldn't be doing, especially when it involves causing harm to other people, right? But it doesn't do any of us any good to obsess over whatever you did wrong, right? You correct it, right? Some things you can't undo it, right? I mean, you can't undo anything. but there's some things you're like, okay, this is not correctable, right? And in that case, you still don't beat yourself up. You go and you do something good, right? You do an esteemable act. That's how you build your self-esteem, by doing esteemable acts, things that you can look on and be proud of that you've done, right? So you go and you do these things, and helping someone to try to make up for some of the wrong that you've done, right? And it's not just me saying that, right? Whatever you follow, whatever spirituality, or even if you're humanistic, right? Some people don't necessarily follow religion stuff, and that's fine, right? But if you follow any of the I guess you say the major religions, what they say, which generally when they say the major religions, they'll consider Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and I would even throw, just because of the major population, even Buddhism in there as well. No matter which one you follow, there's something in there that instructs you to make up for the wrong that you've done, right? To do something good, to help people. And there's nothing that I can see in any of them that requires you to continue to hold yourself guilty about some shit that you can't change from the past, right? But you don't continue to do those things, right? So even when we talk, and I ain't gonna get all religious on you, but even when we talk about, let's say the idea of something like repentance, right? So again, according to any of the major religions that I know, the idea of repentance is within all of them. However, the repentance is not just you go and say, oh, Lord or God or whatever, however you worship, I'm sorry and I repent, and then you just keep doing the same fucking shit, right? That's not what happens, right? You go, you repent, and then you change your behavior, right? You begin to do things so that you train yourself so that you don't go back to doing those same things. And it don't happen automatically, right? Just because, let's say you go and you repent today, and then tomorrow you did this, you do something screwed up or whatever, that doesn't mean that your repentance wasn't serious, right? But you gotta determine in yourself if you're really working on that, right? And if you catch yourself, like the next day doing something, and then you're like, man, I did it again, right? So you just don't keep doing it, right? You turn away from that. The fact that you're feeling a certain way about it, to me, is an indication that you're serious about wanting to change, right? Because when you don't want to change, you don't give a fuck, right? The only time you give a fuck is when you're facing consequences. But if you're torn up over whatever it is that's going on, then that means that you're serious. That means that there's something inside of you that is real about, whatever that thing is. And I would say, you take that up with you and your higher power, but don't beat yourself up over it. Because the more we beat ourselves up over it, the worse it will get, right? And I don't mean that necessarily that life itself will actually get worse, because life is going to be what life is going to be. But if I feel that it's worse, if I'm interpreting it in a negative way, if I'm feeling bad about myself and about my chances in life, then it's worse, because I feel that way, right? And how I feel is how I experience life. Again, I was one of those people that was like, man, fucking feelings, right? Deal with reality. We ain't worried about feelings. But we have to worry about feelings also. Our feelings are important because, again, we will experience life according to how we feel, right? Now, I'm not saying to let ourselves be drawn, like just here and there, just all over the place with our feelings, because they can also take us all over the place based on whatever we experienced in life. But we're going to pay attention to those feelings. But again, this self-efficacy, when we are able to develop that, it helps us to feel better about our chances in life and about our opportunities at being successful in life. And again, the more good, the better we feel about our opportunities being successful, the more motivated we're going to be to actually do something about it, right? So when you really feel that you can accomplish whatever you know, whatever you want, right? Then you go ahead and do it, right? Whether it's educationally, whether it's career-wise or whatever, right? And so I like to think about people that, you know, again, we can look at the creators of things like Facebook, right? You know, Facebook is, I don't know how much it's worth now, but, you know, it's a few billion, right? And I'm sure when I say few, it's probably more than a few billion, but, you know, it's worth a lot of money. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all this shit, or even if we look at individual people, Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey, and stuff like that, right? I even use Oprah. A lot of people don't like Oprah, right? A lot of black folks got a lot of fucked up shit to say about her, right? Because, and as far as I can tell, a lot of people feel like Oprah should be giving them all her fucking money, right? But I'm like, shit, she had to work for whatever the fuck she got. Some people would say she got all that money by being a sellout, right? I'm like, you know, come on. I mean, ain't that much sellout in the fucking world, right? You know, she came from pretty much nothing to being a billionaire. That's a major accomplishment. And she didn't just, you know, have some easy life to get there, right? She went through a bunch of shit as a child. You know, she went through, you know, assaults and all kind of shit, addicted, you know, mother, I mean, she went through some fucked up shit. Some shit that some of us, yeah, she was, you know, that's what I mean, sexual assaulted as a child, you know, so it was things that a lot of us haven't necessarily had to deal with, right, that she did deal with, and she rose above it. She rose above it, right? We all have shit, right? I mean, we've all had fucked up shit that's happened to us, with us, around us, shit we've seen, or whatever. And some of us stay stuck based on those things. And then some of us choose to rise above it, right? Some of us go under it, right? It takes some of us, we let it take us down. But we can choose to rise above it because, again, just like our own behavior, things that we've done in the past, we can't undo it. Whatever experiences we've had in the past, we can't undo them. But what we can do is we can use those experiences to help someone else, right? And any of the major self-help groups that we look at, right? Again, whether we talk about AA, NA, ACA, and ACA is Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, or CODA, right? Codependence Anonymous, or Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, or, you know, you can think of any fucking group you can think of, self-help type group, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, stuff like that. These groups are developed by people who have suffered from whatever the issue is, and they come together as a social group to help each other to overcome and rise above the things that they're going through or that they have been through, right? That's what it's called. It's called self-help, right? But it's also called like a social model, like when they talk about AANA, it says social model recovery as opposed to, let's say, being in a medical treatment facility or something like that, right? Social model recovery. And you know, you might say, okay, well, what does all that got to do with self-esteem? Everything, right? Everything, because when you're in these social model recoveries, right, it is a thing, even though it says self-help, you're actually involved with people, helping other people like yourself who are either going through or have been through something similar that you're going through. And the more you actually help people, the more better you begin to feel about yourself as you are helping other people, the stronger you begin to feel and the more control you begin to feel over your own situation. Because sometimes it feels like out of control. It feels like, fuck, I have no control. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do, right? So, but as you start doing something, right, and that's one of the things that people will say, well, if you don't know what to do, just do something. Right? And I don't mean do stupid shit, because some of us, you know, we do something, but we do dumb shit, right? Shit that we know that's going to put us in a bad situation, and then we complain when we're in a bad situation, right? We know we're going to face consequences, but then we do it, and we're facing consequences. Now we're all pissed off because we're facing consequences. You know, so we don't do stupid shit, right? So, you know, like I say, we got stupid problems. So now we are in a process, hopefully, we're all trying to have, we're at a point in our life where we're having quality problems, right? Again, I make a distinction between stupid problems and quality problems. Stupid problems being those things that we did that put us in prison, right? Dumb shit that we knew that that's what it would lead to, but we were smarter and we could beat the system and we were gonna get away with it, yeah. But we knew that that was a possibility, so we ended up in prison. Those were stupid problems. Now, quality problems are, again, normal life shit, right? You're working, maybe you got your okay job or whatever, but for whatever reason, your bills, you got a lot of bills and different things that you got to pay, or your car break down unexpectedly, or stuff like that, and you're like, fuck, how am I going to get this paid off, or how am I going to take care of these things, right? And that's kind of life, right? That's life. Those are quality problems. And some of us be like, well, I don't see the quality in that. If my car's messed up and I can't get it fixed, can't get it fixed right now, or it's going to take every last dime I got to get it fixed, then, what's good about that, right? Well, the one thing that's good about that, you have some people don't even have a fucking car to get fixed, right? Can't even afford to get on the fucking bus, right? Can't get anywhere, right? Even just being here, like I said, you people are here at this place, right? Based on the fact that you have committed crimes, it qualifies you to get treatment, right? You have people paying for you to get treatment because you have committed felonies. So you have did something to violate your, I guess you could say, your responsibility to society and to your community, right? And you do have a responsibility, whether you own that or not. We all have a responsibility to our community and to society, right? So we find, I'm gonna say we rather than you people, right? Because I was one of them, just like you, right? So we violated, our trust or our responsibility to society and committed crimes, done things against the law, and because of that, for some amazing reason, we're now qualified to get assistance. We're now put in position that people are going to help us to get substance abuse treatment, to get training. Some of you, are getting into programs where they got like truck driving school, where they're paying for you to go to fucking truck driving school. You have citizens out there who have never committed any crimes, right? Or never been caught for committing any crimes or anything. And they don't have those same privileges, right? Let's talk privilege. Who's privileged, right? They don't have those same privileges. Why? Because they haven't committed a crime. So, again, you're put in these places, so you're given these things. Now, I don't say that to try to shame you, and you never let anybody fucking shame you. I don't say it to try to shame you, but I do want to put things into perspective, because we will have the wrong perspective. We all look at the things from the worst possible scenario. When we notice something about ourselves that is not, let's say, meeting our expectations, right? We complain about, oh, this program, they won't let me do this. Oh, this thing right here is not working out. That's not working out. And again, I don't immediately, when things don't work out for me, I don't immediately say, oh, good, here's the lesson. I can learn a good lesson from this, right? No, I do not do that. I'm cussing and shit just like the rest of you, right? But at some point, I realize, like, dude, getting mad and cussing and wanting to fuck something up and break something isn't going to change anything. It's not going to make anything better. So look at the situation and figure out what can you do to try to address this situation, right? Now, at the end of your analysis, you may say nothing, ain't shit I can do, right? And so with that, right, so I mentioned quality problems, and that's when we're not doing stupid stuff. So we have problems, and then we have facts of life. right? So if you have a, a problem, then that means it's something that can be resolved. It's something that you can learn a lesson from. It's something that you can get past it, right? This too shall pass. Remember that. Never forget that little cliche, this too shall pass, because everything will fucking pass, right? No matter what you're going through, that shit will pass. Don't feel like it right now, but it will, right? Everything will pass. So as you remember that, okay, this too shall pass, but also look at the situation and the analysis and say, okay, well, and you come to the conclusion like, ain't shit I can do about it. Well, in that case, it's not a problem, right? It's just a fact of life, right? You know, there's another cliche they got in recovery, living life on life terms, right? Living life on life terms. That's a huge thing. We could do probably a whole week worth of groups just trying to properly understand that, or I would even say it's not hard to understand, but I think it's difficult to internalize that idea, right? Living life on life terms, because living life on life terms does not mean that everything in life, right, is going to be according to terms that are agreeable to me, right? What living life on life terms means is that I accept life as it is, right? Now, I do my conscientious best to make my life as good as I can within my power, but when fucked up shit happens, I still deal with life, right? I'm still gonna live life on life terms, meaning including the unfavorable things that happen to me, right? And happen around me, things that don't work out in my favor, things that are not going as planned, that I'm still gonna be okay with that and deal with that accordingly, right? And accepting, accepting it for what it is. Now, one of the problems that a lot of times people have with this idea of acceptance, which is the same thing that problem that I have with it, because I didn't properly understand what acceptance is, right? So first of all, acceptance has nothing to do with agreement. It has nothing to do with a condoning. It has nothing to do with validating or in any way promoting whatever it is that you're accepting, right? It just means that you accept it for what it is, right? So it would be like me, accepting my grandmother passing away, right? So, both of my grandparents, they passed away while I was in prison, right? So I accepted the fact that they passed away, because sometimes even when we lose someone, we're like, man, I can never accept this. Like, well, you have no fucking choice. You cannot you don't have to like it. Acceptance don't mean that you're going to like it, but you accept it because that's what it is. That's what happened, right? So I accept the fact that they passed away. I don't like it, but I accept that that's what happened. And then acceptance gives you the ability to move on or to correct whatever the situation is, right? So you might even accept, okay, somebody punching you in the face, right? So somebody comes up, they just walk up, just punch you in the face, right? Now, what does acceptance look like in that situation? Now, does acceptance, and you accepting that, right? And we use it wrong, right? Because we'll say that. We'll say, like, if we see somebody get punched in the face, they don't defend themselves, be like, man, you just gonna accept that, right? But that's a whole different thing than accepting it, right? So accepting it is just me accepting the fact, like, damn, this motherfucker just punched me in the face, right? So that's the acceptance part, me recognizing the fact that I did just get punched in the fucking face. That don't mean I ain't gonna do nothing about it, right? Me doing something about it is not me taking anything away from the fact. Matter of fact, if I don't accept it, then what am I doing, right? Just to let's say retaliate, I have to first accept the fact that this motherfucker just punched me in the face, right? And so now that I accepted the fact, damn, he just punched me in the face. Now I determine how I'm going to address it, right? So again, acceptance is just you accepting things for what they are, right? And then you begin to work on getting it to be what you want it to be. Because again, I accept my life, right, for what it is, right? I even, in prison, I accept my life for what it was at that time, right? I accepted the fact that, okay, I'm in prison, I'm serving a life sentence, right? So, but I didn't say, well, it's just what it is, I'm okay with it, right? No, I started doing things, right? Filing writs and, appealing all my board decisions and stuff like that. I started doing things that were going to help me to get out of that situation, right? Because again, I accepted the fact that I'm here, but I also accepted the fact that I don't fucking want to be here, right? And nobody was coming, meaning nobody was coming to levitate me out of prison and save me from prison. I had to do something about it, so I did, right? So that's acceptance, right? And the more we grow in our self-efficacy, we're able to have a higher level of acceptance, right? Even again, in your AA and NA and CODA and all these other groups, right? One of the things it will tell you is that acceptance is the key to all your problems, right? But we have to properly understand what acceptance is. So then the other part that we talk about is self-respect. So self-efficacy, confidence in your competence, right? And self-respect, though, again, it's self, right? Yourself, how you respect yourself, right? But it's more than, well, I won't say it's more than respect. I think it's more than what we understand as respect, right? So it's your belief in your right to be happy, successful, and content with your life, and the knowledge that it's your responsibility. That's the fucking hard part for a lot of us, right? Is that we will say, well, I have a right to be happy. I have a right to be content. But the part that we find hard to accept is it's my responsibility to get there, right? I have to get this shit figured out, and I have to get me there, right? And sometimes it doesn't seem so easy, right? And most things worthwhile in life are not easy. But about this, it says 3 basic observations. 1, if we respect ourselves, we tend to act in ways that confirm and reinforce this respect. This, not disrespect, but this respect, the respect we have for ourselves, such as requiring others deal with us appropriately. So again, if we respect ourselves, we tend to act in ways that confirm and reinforce this respect, right? So if we respect ourselves, we're going to act the way, and you'll see it, right? In people, and you will see it even in yourself, right? Where sometimes we'll feel more confident in some situations than other times, right? So, for example, a lot of us, especially those of us that done a lot of fucking time, especially, and if you kind of grew up, like I grew up in the system, right? From juvenile hall, juvenile placement, youth authority, then finally ended up getting a life sentence, right? At the age of 17. And then went on to do another 21 years in prison. So in that environment, in the environment of being incarcerated, right? No matter where I went, I always knew somebody, right? They ain't necessarily have to be somebody that I chilled with, that I hung out with or whatever, but I always, no matter where I went, whatever yard, I would always run into somebody that I knew from some point of doing time somewhere, right? Now, even those of us that consider ourselves to be able to hold our own and be independent and all that bullshit, I don't give a fuck who you are. When you see another motherfucker that you know, it make you feel so much better when you're in a place and that you know nobody, right? You don't know nobody. Even if that person could be a fucking enemy, right? It could be somebody that you done fucking, you done had war against each other and fucking try to fucking stab each other or whatever, but you happen to, you run into them, but you know them from wherever, right? It still makes you feel better than just not knowing anybody, right? Not knowing anybody. So in those situations, though, we will carry ourselves with more, confidence and even, actually feel more confident in certain situations in the prison environment and stuff like that, walking around and, you got people maybe coming, getting your advice as far as certain, activities that may occur. And so you feel a certain way, and you should, it's okay, nothing wrong with that. But then when we get out here in free society and we're trying to, again, apply for jobs, talking to business people, talking to, let's say, politicians and stuff like this, we feel intimidated, right? We don't feel as confident. We don't feel, as strong, even though these other people that we're ready to go up against, right, they got weapons and everything ready to fucking kill us, right? We're ready to fucking do battle. We got this politician over here, ain't got no weapon, and then if he did, he probably don't even know how to fucking use it, right? But we're scared to death of that, right? To talk. Just to have a conversation, right? And it shows, right? And that's what it says. It says tend to act in ways that confirm and reinforce disrespect, right? So the way that we act, the way that we conduct ourselves, the way we move will confirm the self-respect that we have for ourselves, right? So whether it's, working on your job and stuff like that, even taking pride in like the work that you do, right? Taking pride in the work you do. Because a lot of people and a lot of us, we feel like, that I don't own the company, right? I'm going for a fucking paycheck. That's what I go to work, I get paid, done, right? But anything that you do, right? If you choose to do it, you should commit to doing your absolute best because it's a reflection on you, right? It is a reflection on you. I don't give a fuck if you don't own the company, right? If the company is so fucked up, get the fuck out of there. Right? Go to another company. But as long as you're there, do your absolute best. Bring value wherever you go and whatever you do. Right? And this is what it's talking about. We tend to act in ways that confirm and reinforce. Right? 2, if we do not respect ourselves, we tend to act in ways that lower our sense of our own value even further, such as accepting or sanctioning inappropriate behavior towards us by others, thereby confirming and reinforcing our negativity. So again, if we do not respect ourselves, we tend to act in ways that lower our sense of our own value even further. So that part is important, and then it says about accepting like disrespect from other people, but fuck all that, right? Because as far as the accepting disrespect from other people, sometimes you're dealing with ignorant people, right? Exceptionally ignorant people that don't know how to shut the fuck up, right? They're gonna talk shit or whatever. And coming from our environment, we think like, yeah, I gotta punch this motherfucker in the mouth, right? So he can't be talking shit. No, you don't, right? If, again, that person ain't putting their hands on you, they really haven't done nothing to you. Of course, we don't like what they're saying, and we feel a certain way about that, and we may want to do something. But at the end of the day, going back to actually respecting ourselves, right, and knowing that success is our responsibility, I have to look at this and say, well, is punching this person in the mouth important enough to send me back to prison, right? Is it worth me going back to prison or putting myself in some other undesirable situation just to prove that I ain't weak and prove that, because generally when we're doing it, we want to prove something, even if it's not to a crowd. A lot of times it is to a crowd, especially, somebody talking shit they're in front of other people, and we're like, man, I can't let this motherfucker talk shit to me like that. Everybody gonna think they can do it, right? And so we fuck them up, right? Just to show them like, yeah, I ain't with that, right? And it really is to prove a point to other people. But sometimes, even if it's just that person, right, and nobody else is around, we're still doing it to prove something, because we're trying to prove something to that person, and we're trying to prove that, hey man, you can't get away with just saying anything to me. So we fuck them up to teach them a lesson. But the problem is that we got other ways that we can go about that, right? One way is, hey man, you can't talk to me that way. Tell me. Right? It's so fucking simple. Right? And most people, and you'll have some people that try to go on, but generally when you are firm in what you're saying and you actually believe what you're saying, generally people will, I ain't even gonna call it back down. They will respect that. Because I don't think it's a thing of backing down. Right? Like you might say something, and that's one of the things, again, we got twisted values, right? And that's why I'm trying to put things in perspective. We always think about backing down or somebody checking us or something like that, right? So let's say you might be saying something, or I'm saying something, right? I'm saying something to you, and maybe I say it a certain way, use a certain term that's offensive to you, right? That word or term, however I use it, it has special meaning to you, and it affects you in a certain, and you feel a certain way about it. So you tell me, you're like, hey, House, we cool and everything, but I'd appreciate it if, when we were talking, you didn't use this term to refer to me with this particular term or whatever, right? So, and which you have an absolute right to do so. But a lot of us will take that offensive, like, who the fuck this motherfucker think he checking, right? Ain't he checking, he just making his desires known. And how else would you know if they didn't tell you? But again, we get this idea in our head, again, that we have to be, tough guys, and nowadays it's not appropriate to say what you really think or what you really feel, right? You have to say everything based on how you feel that somebody else is going to feel about what you're saying. And I say, fuck all that, right? And now I don't mean that you intentionally go out with the intention of trying to harm someone else, right? That's not what I'm saying, right? So if you know something's, gonna fuck with an individual or somebody a certain way, then you don't fucking say it, or you find another way of saying it. But sometimes we won't even talk about an issue because we're worried about how somebody's gonna feel about it. And that is not the correct way to go about it, right? We need to talk about it. So again, but the most important part about this second part, again, we're talking about if we don't respect ourselves, is how we act, right? So again, we tend to act in ways that lower our sense of our own value even further, right? Because again, remember, we already got low self-esteem, so we don't have a lot of value in ourselves. And now, because we continue with this negative behavior, we lower our sense of our value even more so, right? By just the ways that we act, right? We might go out and we'll do shit, make an ass of ourselves just for other people's entertainment. Not that we want to do those things, but because we don't know what else to do. And we feel so awkward, so we just say, what, fuck, I'll just, we just kind of make an ass out of ourselves, right? Just to kind of make the other people laugh. And some of us are fucking clowns, right? I've done shit and clown around, and that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. But I shouldn't constantly and continuously make myself the butt of everybody's fucking joke, right? That is not having respect for myself, right? And then it says lower our sense of our value even further, such as accepting or sanctioning inappropriate behavior towards us by others, right? So, you're allowing people to be inappropriate with you in whatever different ways, right? And so when you have a higher level of self-esteem, you will stop them from doing that. But again, there's a way to do that, right? And the way to do it is not immediately resorting to violence. It's not immediately resorting to yelling and screaming and cussing the person out or threatening them, right? That is the exact wrong way to do things, because generally that will escalate the situation, right? And you know, you may feel like, I don't give a fuck, right? I'm willing to fight, right? Yeah, so is the next person, right? And why put yourself in a situation where you put yourself back in prison, right? For nothing. And that's what it is, for nothing. If it's somebody running their mouth, it's for nothing, you know, to go back to prison. Thereby confirming and reinforcing our negativity. So we already felt the negative about ourselves, so we act in a way that people are not going to respect us, and so we begin to see people being disrespectful towards us, right? And so it says reinforcing our negativity. And as long as when we walk around again with this victim mentality that we carry, and I think that all of us, as much as I talk about, let's say, the victim mentality, I can't say I'm completely unaffected by that, right? Because again, I know that I carried that idea in my head for so long. And again, what I mean is that, you know, somebody else is responsible for the outcome in my life, right? And that, you know, I was kind of stuck, right? At somebody else's, you know, at the whim of anybody else who happened to be making the decisions. And that's not true, right? But and I'm constantly getting rid of any sign or symptom of that shit from me, because it's toxic. That shit is toxic. It will keep us, you know, we always talk about oppressed, right? That's the oppression. The victim mentality is the fucking oppression, right? I don't know, well, at least in this country, there are not too many people that I could say that could try to claim oppression, right? Now, there are some people that got fucked up shit going on in their life. There are some people that sometimes get a raw deal. But oppression, get the fuck out of here, right? And then again, I'm not saying that oppression don't exist, but what we have, everything that I see from, let's say, the bad neighborhoods, poor areas, no matter what race, is mostly, I think all the way, but I'm just going to get a benefit of doubt, and I'm going to say mostly, is mostly caused by the people in the communities, right? The things that they choose to do, the things that they choose to value, the things that they choose to put ahead of other things, you know? And again, I've used myself over and over in this example, right? The things that, when I got out of prison, the things that I chose to spend money on, right? Which is basically bullshit. You know, fucking motorcycles and cars, and I can't tell you, wasting money on all kind of different shit, right? You know, fucking air rifle. I got a couple of high-powered air rifles, right? And one of them is a PCP air rifle. And it's, so the PCP air rifles, you know, those are the ones you gotta like charge it up with either air compressor or a compressed air tank. And just the tank, the fucking tank, right? It's a compressed air. That's what the tank holds, compressed air. But it's like a high power. It got what is it, 4,500 PSI tank, right? Just the fucking tank, $850 for a fucking air tank about this big for the rifle, right? That's the tank for some fucking air, to put some air in, $800, right? Not to mention the cost of the individual rifles, right? Not to mention the cost of the different motorcycles and different shit that I've bought, right? So that's where I poured money into, right? Now, am I rich? Do I have a lot of money? Absolutely not. My ass fucking trying to, you know, keep shit going and, you know, like I said, keep a little business going and working on the line of credit and stuff like that. And again, I got to appeal with the Small Business Administration for the line of credit. And, but again, had I put all of that money into my business, right, it is likely by now, right, I got out originally in 2010, by now I could have already had the business up and going, making sufficient money, and bought all of those things using the money that was generated from that business, right? But my thinking was backwards, and I just wanted a bunch of shit, right? Which a lot of people in the community want, right? But I choose to use myself as an example of the twisted values that we have, because again, when you feel like the rock is being thrown at you, it's hard to listen to, right? Including for myself. If I feel you talking shit to me, I'm like, man, fuck you, right? That's how that's kind of how I feel about it. So, again, I want to use myself as an example for that, So I didn't waste it. I can't. If I add everything up, accumulate everything. Had to be, say I threw away a good 100,000, a little more, since I've been out. Thrown away, I call it thrown away, I say thrown away, right? And I enjoyed some. But if I look at, okay, I'm worried about not having my business going the way that I want, so do I now complain and say, well, the government and systemic racism is the reason why I'm not successful right now? Can I claim that? Absolutely fucking not. I mean, I can say it, but it'll be some fucking bullshit, right? And I think that a lot of people say it, and it's some bullshit, but the problem is that they don't know it's bullshit, right? Because you're being told this over and over. And unfortunately, now you even got the government telling you. Yeah, it's the systemic racism in the government that's keeping you from being able to be successful. And so you're like, fuck, they're telling me that they're the ones that's doing it, so why wouldn't I believe them, right? And I say, no, you're not that weak, right? You're not that weak, right? You can succeed. It's all of us, right? And whether you're poor, if you're poor now, you're poor, we can say life circumstances is the reason why you're poor now. However, if you remain that way, that's your choice. If you remain that way, it's your choice. None of us have an option. We don't get to say, we ain't like, a little sperm and an egg and we kind of have a little meeting and decide like what kind of family we want to be in, right? We don't get that fucking choice, right? We don't get that choice. We gotta, we fall where the fuck we fall, right? We don't get to choose our race and none of that shit, right? But after that, when it comes to success or failure and all of that, we have choices, right? And we can choose to succeed. Like I said, that shit is just hard though. That shit is difficult. It's a lot of work. It's not fun. It's worth it, but it's not necessarily fun. And so we have to be able to challenge ourselves, and we have to be motivated to challenge ourselves. But we're not going to have that motivation if, excuse me, if our self-esteem is exceptionally low and we don't have self-efficacy, which again is confidence in our competence or self-respect, right? Then the third thing it says about this, it says, if we wish to raise the level of our self-respect, we need to act in ways that will cause it to rise. And this begins with a commitment to the value of our own person, which is then expressed through congruent behavior, right? So, again, if we wish to raise our level of self-respect, so again, we have these two components, and I'm talking about them. I'm using this 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem book by Nathaniel Branden. And I'm talking about these two things, self-efficacy and self-respect. We're talking about them conceptually separate, right? We're talking about self-efficacy, self-respect, right, in their own little section. But the way we experience them, they're not experienced separate, they're experienced together, right? The self-efficacy and the self-respect run hand in hand. But if we wish to raise our level of self-respect, we need to act in ways that will cause it to rise. So what does that mean? Act in ways that will cause it to rise. That means doing esteemable acts. That means doing things that you know to be right. Doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even when you want to do otherwise. Right? That's how we fucking grow. Right? We will do the right thing because it happens to be the right thing to do, even when there's something telling us we want to go and do something else. Right? But for whatever reason, we know it's not right, so we choose not to do it. And then over time, we become more and more comfortable doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, right? And it's something that takes practice. Anything that we internalize, that we begin to internalize and to do, it takes practice, right? It becomes habitual. So again, if we wish to raise our level of self-esteem, our level of self-respect, we need to act in ways that will cause it to rise. And this begins with a commitment to the value of our own person, right? Of our own person, right? Your person, your body, yourself, right? As a person, as a human being, which is then expressed through congruent behavior. So, which is then expressed in behavior, right? The behaviors, the things that you choose to do as you are working on your self-esteem and building in your self-respect will reinforce that self-esteem, meaning that we will stop doing, let's say, criminal behavior, right? And in my opinion, this even applies to your drug addiction, right? And again, I'm not an addict maker, right? Even though I'm a substance abuse counselor and all that. And what I mean by addict maker is you'll have some people, they'll see anybody that come through a treatment facility or something, and if the person doesn't admit they're addict, they're all, you're in denial, you're this and that, and they just beat them over the head until they admit they're a fucking addict, right? That's not for me to decide if you're an addict or an alcoholic, right? You may or may not be, right? But your history with the substance abuse will let you know and determine whether you're an addict or an alcoholic. And if you are, then clearly you need to stay the fuck away from the drugs and alcohol, period. Right? You need to stay the fuck away from it. But you need to make that determination, right, as to whether you are an addict or an alcoholic. But I say that to say this. When you improve your self-esteem, self-efficacy, and self-respect, it will even help you with your substance abuse issues, because as you begin to respect yourself, you're not going to want to put yourself in any situation that's going to take away from your opportunities of being successful. And we know that the things that we have done in the past, for me, it was the criminal behavior. For me, it was violence. It was, again, I liked the criminal lifestyle. Right? I enjoyed the criminal lifestyle. I even have some things I miss about the criminal lifestyle. I know I'm a counselor and not supposed to fucking say that. I'm supposed to be like, oh, this is everything. It's certain shit, that I still fucking enjoyed about that shit. But guess what? I ain't putting myself in that situation anymore. Right? I am not putting myself in that situation anymore. I haven't forsaken, let's say, old friends. I haven't even talked to the majority of my old friends in a long fucking time, right? I haven't talked to them in a long fucking time, right? But I still got respect for them, still have love for them, even though I'm not talking to them. Why? Because we're on different paths, right? Doing different shit. But if I've done shit with you, especially life and death shit, right? Just because I change, I'm not looking down upon you and thinking like, oh, I'm better than you. No, they ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm just on a different path, and I'm not going to go down the other path. I'm willing to help you
my God.
come on to something better, but I'm not going to go the other way, nor am I going to try to force you to do something that you're not ready to do, right? But does that mean that, I don't still have love for you? I don't care? No, none of that, right? I'll still go to funerals. That's kind of fucked up. The only time you show up is for funerals, like I'm the fucking Grim Reaper or something. But, I still, I'll still do that. But I have to remain on the path that I'm on if I want the life that I want. And if I choose not to remain on that path and I choose to go back to that lifestyle, then I just need to accept, right? We were just talking about acceptance. I need to accept the consequences of doing that. It's just that simple. So again, which is then expressed through congruent behaviors. And so that congruent behaviors, again, they are behaviors that will reinforce this respect we have for ourselves. And I keep emphasizing the word this, right? Because when I'm saying it, it almost sounds like disrespect, right? Like D-I-S, respect, right? But I'm saying this, T-H-I-S, this respect, this idea of respect. So we will have behaviors that will be congruent, that will be, again, reinforcing the same, similar to what it is that we claim. The need to see ourselves as good is the need to experience self-respect. It emerges very early. As we develop from childhood, we progressively become aware of the power to choose our actions. So this is important, I think. So the need to see ourselves as good is the need to experience self-respect. To see ourselves as good. Now, I think this idea is, we sometimes get this twisted, right? Seeing ourselves as good or good people. Like I said, towards the beginning, you're all good people, right? So I'm sitting in a room, I'm standing in a room full of drug addicts and felons, right? And that includes me, right? And I'm still saying that you're good people. And the only reason I put the drug addicts and felons, because just in case, you might have thought like, oh, he's confused. He must not know who we are. No, I know who the fuck you are, right? Just like I know who I am. But you're good people, right? That's what's naturally to you. You're good people. But we've done some bad things. But what we get twisted, right? It says the need to see ourselves as good people. We think that because we do something bad or we did something wrong, that makes us a bad person. No, it makes our actions bad, but we're still good. Even the fact that we feel guilty, like I said before, if you feel guilty about something you believe to be wrong, that's an indication that you're a good person. Because bad people don't feel guilty about shit that they think is wrong. They just like, yeah, it's wrong, fuck it, I don't give a fuck, right? And they just kind of go with it. But the more, the worse you feel about it, probably the better person you are, right? And you need to realize that. And there won't come a time that you're so good that you will never have a bad thought, right? At times that don't exist, right? But the thing is that you can deal with it. But you'll have some people, especially people get into religion and stuff like that, will try to pretend that they're so holy and so virtuous that no evil thought ever comes to their mind, right? No, right? They're full of shit. They're either lying to you or lying to themselves, but it's actually both. They're lying to you and to themselves, right? They're not that fucking good, right? Because they still have human nature. We have human nature, and it's okay, right? It's okay, right? That sometimes you have negative thoughts. It's okay. It's okay that sometimes you feel dangerous, right? Now we want to monitor what we actually do, right? But you do need to know that you're all dangerous. Every last one of you and me, you're dangerous, right? The important thing, and I mentioned this either yesterday or the day before, I mentioned this, and the reason why I want to reiterate it is because if we don't realize that we're dangerous, then we're even more dangerous, because that shit can come out unexpectedly, right? If I know, let's say for me, okay, I've always had anger issues, which is the reason why I got into anger management and chose to make it as part of my, my career. I love, doing the anger management class, absolutely love it. And learning everything I can learn about it. So, but the reason I got into it was because I got anger issues, bad anger issues, right? When I get, like, let's say, really pissed off at you, your life passed before my eyes. Your life flashes before my eyes. So, and I know the saying is that, oh, my life flashed before, oh man, it was so crazy. I saw my life flash before my eyes. But I don't see my life flash before my eyes. I see your life flash before my eyes, right? And I'm sure you can kind of figure out what that means. So that's a problem. I mean, it's a problem and it's not. Because I think a lot of people are like that. But I can get caught up in my head and think that, oh, well, I'm just still such an evil person because I have these thoughts. No, I'm not an evil person because I have these thoughts, right? I'd probably be an evil person if I continue to, let's say, harm people because of these thoughts. Yeah, that would be a problem. But the fact that I have them and know that I have them, it creates a situation that I know this is in me, so I know to be on guard against it. So I know that once I feel myself escalating to a certain level, I'm like, okay, you know what? I need to de-escalate, or I need to just remove myself from this situation before it gets out of hand, right? And I should never think like, oh, well, I've been doing this anger management so long, I'm in total control of everything about myself. Nobody can draw me out of character, because that would be some absolute fucking bullshit, right? And depending on what day it is, right? On a certain day, it might be easier than other days to draw me out of character, right? I don't want to see it, right? I don't want to see it if somebody draw me out of character. Some of us, again, we come from where we come from, the type of environments we come from, and we'll make statements like, oh yeah, that motherfucker lucky, I ain't the way I used to be. And I say, no, you're lucky you ain't the way you used to be, because if you were, your ass would probably be sitting in fucking prison than sitting out here in free society, right? With all the opportunities in the world available to you, right? That's what we have available to us, the fucking world. That's what's available to us out here. In prison, it's prison. I mean, you can get some trades and some shit in there, but you're kind of limited to the walls, right? Out here, you have a whole fucking world. It's out here at your disposal. If you choose not to take advantage of it, that's kind of up to you. Yes, it's going to be a little bit harder for some of us than others, right? Like, again, I see some of you, you're in your, you come here, you get out, you're done however much time you've done, and 2-3 months, you're driving around in fancy ass cars and shit, better shit than I got now, even after being out for a while. Right? My ass riding around the bus for 3 fucking years. I'm talking public transportation every fucking where I went. Right? Wasn't no fucking body driving me any fucking where. If I went to the fucking store, it was on that fucking bus. If I went to work on one of the labor ready jobs, it was on that fucking bus. When I had to go visit my family in Riverside, it was on that fucking bus. Every fucking where I went, it was on a fucking bus. Right? For 3 fucking years. Right? And I'm not saying that like that's some, bad problem, right? Because again, you got some people can't even afford to ride the fucking bus, right? So I was blessed. I was blessed to be able to ride that bus. But the point I'm making is because, again, like I said, everything is perspective. When we choose to be upset about something or about our life experience and life situation, we'll look at that. We see, and we always look at people that got more than us, and we feel bad because we ain't got as much as they got, right? When in reality, the majority of the world population has less than you, right? I don't even know what each one of you sitting in this room have, but I do know over 80% of the world population have less than what you have. Right? Just the fact that you're able to sit here in this facility and have clean fucking water. You're better off than 80% of the fucking world. Imagine that, right? And we complain, right? Even like, look at parole, right? I was on parole. They letting lifers off parole now 1 and 2 years, right? Some people end up 3 years. 6 years I was on parole. And initially I was supervised by the feds and parole. Had a fucking ankle monitor on for the feds, and then and with the the state parole supervising me. 6 years I was on parole. Right? People getting off 1, 2 years getting off parole. Right? And again, I understand wanting to get off, because if I got out in the era where people getting off in 1 year, I wouldn't want to do 2. Like, fuck, let me off in a fucking year. Right? I'm not saying there's something wrong with the fact that you would want to get off sooner. But what I'm saying is that sometimes we don't recognize, we don't recognize the blessings that we have. We don't recognize the benefits that we have. We don't recognize the privileges. Whatever word you choose to use, I don't care. All the same shit, right? We don't recognize the privileges that we have, because we continue to look at things and people that have more than us. We compare ourselves to them, and then we begin to feel sorry for how little that we have. When if we looked at things from the perspective of people that have less than us, then we could feel grateful for the things that we have, right? And to me, that makes life so much better. Right? And again, it's the same fucking thing as the cup is half empty or the cup is half full. It's the same thing. Like I said, that cup, whether it's half empty or half full, the actual level in the fucking cup is the exact same. A half full cup, the point where the liquid is in the cup, in a half full cup, is at the exact same point, of the cup that's half full or half empty at the exact same point. There is absolutely no difference. But there is a difference in how it feels when we think about it. So again, whether I look at people that have more than me or I look at people that have less than me, I'm still in the same fucking position in life. Right? But if I look at people that have less than me, again, I can feel better about the things that I actually have, rather than feeling sorry for myself because I don't have what Oprah or Elon Musk has, right? I'm fucking depressed, right? My whole fucking life, all the money I've made in my life, they probably get that shit in 10 minutes, right? I can feel sorry for myself. Or I can choose to feel good about the opportunities that I have, right? And with the realization that even though I have lived the majority of my life as a fucking criminal, that I still can make decisions to have me to be successful and be a millionaire if I choose to do so. If I choose to put in the work, right? I have to choose to put in the work, of course, but I can choose to be a fucking millionaire. And so can you, right? Any one of us, we can choose to be a millionaire. And I know it sounds like bullshit, especially when you're not a thousandaire or a hundredaire. And I don't even know if those are actually words, right? Some shit I made up. But I'm sure you understand what I mean by a thousandaire or a hundredaire, right? Meaning you got $100 or $1,000, right? Fuck being a millionaire. Right? So if you ain't got shit, it's kind of hard to imagine like, oh yeah, I can just be a millionaire. It's kind of hard to see it. But see it anyway, right? Look at the people. This is the reason I'll say to look at the people that have more than you, right? Not to feel sorry for yourself, but to figure out how the fuck they got there. So rather than down them and oh, look at old rich, privileged motherfucker. Yeah, fuck all that. How did they get there? Find out what did they do to acquire their wealth, right? Some people, their family already had it. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Wish my family had to give it to me like that. They didn't fucking have it. So fuck it, I gotta work for it, right? But if they did have it, guess what? I bet you I wouldn't be fucking feeling guilty that they handed me some shit. Why? Because they fucking worked. That was the point of them working for it, right? So you, especially those of you that have children, you should want to generate wealth and be able to give your kids or your children an easy life. I mean, make sure they understand the value of money and understand the value of helping other people. You still want them to be decent human beings. But at the same time, the fact that you make it so they don't have to fucking work their ass off and risk their life every day on a fucking job, ain't nothing wrong with that. But people make it look like it's a bad thing. Oh, he's privileged. They just, his money was handed to him, right? And so what? So what, right? And you know where that comes from? Envy, jealousy, right? That's what it is when we say that. I mean, really think about it. Even when you say it, right? Think about why are you saying it? What is it? Or you say it's not jealousy or envy. Tell me what's bad about it. Just break down, make a little list of the bad things about a parent that chooses to create wealth and make sure that their following generations are taken care of. You just maybe I could be all fucked up in the head, right? So break down to me what's wrong with that, right? And like I said, I would love to create that and pass that on, right? But that's why we stay poor. That's why we stay broke, right? We focus on the wrong things. So rather than me focusing on, okay, what can I get? Again, if I'm looking at this person to have more than me, what can I do to help me to have what they have, right? I'm just focusing on being mad that they have it, right? I'm upset just because somebody else have it and I don't, right? Like, get the fuck out of here, right? I mean, I get it. I get it, right? Like, fuck, I would like to have that too. But, and so would I. But I'm going to do what's necessary so that I can work and get it. And that's what we want to do. So again, it's all the same, right? And it's going to be the same. But it's how you choose to look at it is what's going to make a difference. And it does change everything, right? What do they say? I think they always quote Wayne Dyer when a statement that he said. He says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change, right? And so, and it makes a big, it makes a huge difference. And again, these are principles that work with everything, right? We can even use it for, let's say, somebody that you have a sexual attraction to, right? Man, woman, whoever it is, right? Somebody that when you first look at it, you're like, dang, man. I mean, they're like, almost make your mouth water. They look so good, right? But you kind of get to know them, know their personality. They just got a shitty fucking personality, right? Like the way they conduct themselves, the way that they talk, maybe even the way that they treat you or something like that, right? Now, first appearance, you're like, oof, right? Almost make your fucking heart stop, right? After getting to know them for a while, and most of you know somebody like this, somebody that you were very impressed by initially, and then you get to know them, and they're a total fucking turnoff, right? Just because of the way they behave, the way they conduct themselves, the way that they address you, or, it could be a number of different things, but people like that. It could be people that you met while you're incarcerated. It could be homies. It could be a significant other, whatever. But people that you may have initially started off fascinated by them, and then you get to know them. And not only, and the crazy thing is, let's say, and I use the example of sexual attraction because not only do you get to the point where you're like, fuck this, I don't even definitely don't want to be with this person, right? But just the way they look seem to change. Like, they don't even look as good as they did when you first had that initial infatuation. They're not as sexy as they were when you had that initial infatuation, because your whole way of looking at them has changed, right? So, and it happens with everything when we change the way that we choose to look at things. That's why I wanted to paint the picture that I painted on the self-esteem and talking about success, right? Because again, if we can internalize these ideas about ourselves, number one, that you are good people, right? I don't give a fuck what you've done in the past. You're a decent human being. Now, you can choose to conduct yourself as a not decent human being, and you can become a not decent human being. But that's something you're going to become. That's something you're going to create for yourself, like being gangster, right? Some of us, we got this idea about being gangster. I was born gangster. My family down this gangster. No, you ain't, right? And you weren't born gangster. And in most cases, you ain't even gangster, especially if you're talking about it. If you got it constantly repeated, you're trying to make yourself believe that you're gangster, right? You're trying to make yourself believe because you don't believe it, and neither does anybody else, right? So you ain't got to keep saying this shit. But now, you can train yourself to be not a good person, right? That's what I was doing when I was out into the criminal behavior. Because again, I grew up on all the fucked up beliefs. Man ain't supposed to cry. You're supposed to be hard. You shouldn't have remorse for people. You shouldn't have any sympathy. All this type of shit, right? I was told all those things were weaknesses. And I believed that they were weaknesses. So when I would feel those things, I would try to get that shit out of me. I'm like, man, fuck this weak shit, man. I don't want to be weak in any way, shape, or form, right? And so if I did have, let's say, sympathy or remorse for something that I did with somebody or to somebody, I would do something even worse, right? Because again, I felt like it was a weakness. I even had the remorse, right? So I would want to make myself to not feel anything about that. And it began to work. But the problem was what I was doing, I wasn't making myself gangster. I wasn't making myself tough. I was dehumanizing myself. I was converting myself from a human being to a fucking animal, right? And most of us, when we're in, whether you're in a treatment facility like this or if you're in prison or whatever, most of us have this idea that we don't want people looking at us like animals, right? And I agree with you. I don't want people looking at me like I'm a fucking animal either. But if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, then what the fuck can they do, right? I mean, what else could they possibly do but treat us, I ain't gonna say you, us, like animals if we're conducting ourselves like animals. But we don't want to speak on that shit, and we don't want to admit that the consequences that we're facing are directly associated with the behavior that we're doing, right? The consequence that we're facing is associated with the behaviors that we're doing. We don't want to admit that. And I understand why. This shit don't feel good. It hurt, right? It hurt. But, fuck it. We need to deal with it. We need to address it, right? And never be ashamed of anything. And when it comes to the idea of shame, don't be ashamed. You can feel guilty, right? Because again, guilty is just, and I'm going to end with this. Guilty is you're feeling a certain way because of something that you did wrong, right? You feel a certain way because of something that you did wrong. And if I do something wrong, then I should feel guilty. I shouldn't go overboard even with the guilt, right? You don't beat yourself, you don't beat yourself up over that shit. But shame is different. Shame is experienced as, and maybe, I don't know exactly what we're going to do this afternoon, but maybe I'll talk about it a little bit. But shame is experienced as you believing that you are something wrong, that there's something inherently wrong with you as a human being, right? And that is false. You can believe it, And if you believe it, then it ends up being true for you. But just know that it's not actually true, meaning that there's not actually something wrong with you as a human being, right? But again, there are different lessons that we may have to learn based on who we are, how we are, or whatever we have experienced in life, right? There are certain things that we may need to, still experience so that we can move towards or closer to our actual purpose in life, right? But again, you are not a bad person. You are a decent human being who have either you chose to do bad things or chooses to do bad things, because some of you still ain't stopped fucking up, right? So, but again, even if you're fucking up, you're still not a bad person. You have bad actions, and you will face the consequences for those actions, right? You will, we don't get away with anything, right? So, again, whether you say you sow what you reap, you say karma, whatever you use, right? That shit will come to you. So we want to stop putting ourselves out there in the negativity, but just don't think that you're a fucking bad person, because people will tell us that we're bad people. People will tell us, and nothing's worse than what we tell ourselves. No fucking body. There ain't a person on this earth that will beat you up worse than that person that you see when you look in the mirror, right? Now, you do want to hold yourself accountable, but don't beat yourself up, right? Hold yourself accountable, but don't beat yourself up, right? And nobody will do you worse. Nobody will talk as bad to you. Nobody will do the fucked up shit to you as you will do to yourself, right? I mean, just thinking about the shit I did to myself, right? I've sent myself to juvenile hall, juvenile placement, youth authority, and prison, right? On numerous occasions, and done so much fucking time. Again, more time in than I've been out, right? Of incarceration, right? I done that to me. It wasn't the police, systemic racism, and all this other bullshit that we try to make excuses, right? I done that to me, and I'm gonna take responsibility for that. So with that,